Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to 10 Days of Power BI. My name is Chinonso Okonkwo, and welcome once again to 10 Days of Power BI. So I'd just like you guys to drop in the chat box where you're joining us from. If you can hear this clearly, just drop where you're joining from. We want to know. Just let us know in the chat box. Okay, I'm seeing your locations. I'm seeing your locations. So that's nice. See Nairobi, see Lagos. All right. You're welcome once again to 10 Days of Power BI. So we're just going to be waiting for 5 minutes to give others a room to join as well, so they can join us and learn with us. So in that 5 minutes, we're just going to also go over the assessment form that you filled from yesterday. So I sent out an assessment form containing like 5 questions, and I noticed there were like 2 questions that people kept getting wrong. So I would just like to go over that before we start today's section. So while we wait for others to join, I'll just go over that question. So the question had to do with the Power BI component. Yesterday, I talked about the 3 Power BI components: Power BI Desktop, Power BI Service, and Power BI Mobile. Now, we create our reports and perform our analytics in Power BI Desktop, and then we push these reports that we've created in Power BI Desktop to our Power BI service, where we can view and interact with it as well. And then we can also download the mobile app and also view our reports in a mobile form as well. So I'll repeat again, the 3 components of Power BI is the Power BI Desktop, the Power BI Mobile, and the Power BI Service. So I hope that clears up the confusion. Also, another question people found was which view tab is used for creating relationships. Now, I talked about 3 views. I talked about the report view, I talked about the data view, and I talked about the data model or the model view. So the data model is used for creating relationships in Power BI. When we go into the interface again, Power BI interface during this course, I'll show you that once again. So anytime you're trying to create relationships between your data tables, you are definitely going to your data model. So you're going to your model view. So I hope that clears that up as well. So what's the time now? The time is 6:05. So I'm just going to wait for 2 more minutes, let's see, and see if others will join as well, so they don't miss out. The time is 6:06. I think we've given time for others to join as well. Okay. So since we've given time for others to join as well, I think it's just time to get right into it. So today's class is going to be a practical class, but of course, before we move into the practical class in Power BI, we'd like to go over the terms that we're going to encounter when we are working with our data in Power BI. We don't want to just go into it without understanding some terms that are going to make it easy for us to interact with Power BI better. So this is officially day 2 of 10 days of Power BI, and I welcome you once again. Thank you for joining us. Today's agenda, we're going to be getting data from an Excel file. We'll talk about what an Excel file is first of all. Then we're going to be transforming data using Power Query. We'll go over data profiling, data cleaning, and at the end of this, we'll do a mini project using Power BI to go through these steps we have outlined here. So basically, today's agenda is getting data from an Excel file, transforming data using Power Query. Power Query is going to come a lot handy in data transformation. And we talk about profiling our data and cleaning data to prepare it for analysis. First, let's talk about an Excel file. Basically, an Excel file is structured in the format of rows and columns. So an Excel file consists of rows and columns, which are sometimes referred to as fields. Data is stored in a tabular format, as you can see here, and each tabular format comes with like an header, and you have individual rows. The rows are placed horizontal, and the columns are placed on the vertical axis. So an Excel file is just a tabular array of data. So this is the file we're going to be importing into our Power BI. This is going to be the format of the file we're importing into our Power BI. This is not exactly the file, but this is the format of the file. So like I said earlier, I'll go over it again. An Excel file consists of just rows and columns of data which we enter. So it's just in a simple tabular format. Now let's talk about Power Query, of course. Power Query is a data transformation engine that is provided by Microsoft in Power BI, and it is also found in some of the other applications like Microsoft Excel as well. Now, what does Power Query do? As the name implies, the data transformation engine. It's basically used to perform various data cleaning processes before you close and load your data into Power BI. So Power Query is going to help you get that data from a dirty data to a very clean data. Power Query is just an engine that is provided alongside the Power BI interface to work with to get your data from dirty data to clean data. Now you're going to be going a lot of times to Power BI. You might have to switch from when you're creating your report to the Power BI interface. It's going to be a bit of always going back to do some things. So I feel I should give you a heads up. So like I said earlier, we're just going over all of these terms before we're going to head off to Power BI and get ourselves familiarized with Power BI. Now, let's talk about getting data from an Excel file. Now, a typical workflow starts with we get our data from an Excel file and then we transform our data using the Power Query editor. Now, Power Query is referred to as Power Query or referred to as Power Query editor. It still means the same thing. So you get your data from the Excel file, then you transform your data using Power Query. Now, after transforming your data after getting your data into Power Query to get ready for data transformation, before you start data transformation, you might want to do a data profiling. Now, let's have a look at what data profiling is here. It is having a look at your data to determine if anomalies exist within your data. This is done using Power Query. So you can perform data profiling using the Power Query editor. Now, what does this mean exactly? Determine if anomalies, what are anomalies existing within your data? What is this exactly explaining to us? This is basically telling us that there might be Like we said, data does not always come in a clean format. Data comes in various dirty formats, such as having duplicates and nulls. So having a look at your data using data profiling is going to help you determine these anomalies, these irregularities that do not meet the standards, that do not meet the acceptable standards, that we should not have duplicates in our data sets. We should not have nulls in our data sets. Having profiling your data is going to get you to be able to pick out these irregularities that are beyond the standards. Now, Power Query determines these anomalies and data statistics how? Using column distribution, column quality, and column profile. Now, these three terms, we are going to, when we head off to the Power BI interface, we are going to come across them and we're going to see them in action there. But we will want to understand what these terms mean here before we move on to there. So when I go over explaining it there, it doesn't seem strange. Now, where can you find this data profiling features, the column distribution, the column quality, and the column profile? You can find this feature on the View tab in the data preview. I'll show you this as we move along. So let's go a bit into the explanation of these features that are going to help you determine your anomalies and determine some statistics about your data. Let's talk about column quality first. Now, column quality shows you the percentage of data that is valid, error, or empty in a column, because we're talking about column quality. So let me get you straightened now. Shows you the percentage of data that is valid. The percentage of data that is valid is, let's have a look at this table once again. If you're checking the column quality of the name column, you count here, you can see Jacob, you can see Isabella, Ethan, Sophia, and Michael. You can clearly tell that all of the rows are filled with data. So your column quality is going to give you 100% because every entry is filled. There is no null in this entry at all. It's just going to tell you that there's no errors in this. So it's just going to tell you 100% valid. Now, imagine I were to remove Isabella from this. It's not going to be 100% valid anymore. It will just be 80% valid when we do the math. Let me come back ahead to this. Column quality shows you the percentage of data that is valid, error, or empty. Now, if I remove Isabella from that data table, I'm going to be having a 20% empty value in that column. This is going to tell me, before I even head off to data cleaning, that okay, 20% of my values in this column is empty, and this needs to be addressed. I need to take into account this and know exactly what I'm going to do with this. So let's move on to the next. Okay, let's address the error. Now, sometimes when you load data into Power BI, sometimes you get errors. You see, instead of your data value showing, you're going to be seeing an error. Instead for you to see Isabella or to see Ethan, you're going to see an error. So now this is an issue as well. So the column quality is going to show you if you have an error in this. Now let's head off to the next. Let's talk about column distribution. Now, column distribution is just going to, it tells you the number of distinct and unique values in each column. So now, this distinct and unique is a bit confusing, and I admit it was a bit confusing to me at first. So distinct values are in a column it's just the count of all the values in a column, including duplicates, including nulls. These are the distinct values in a column. So I'll go over it again. Distinct values in a column is the count of the values in the column, including duplicates and including nulls. Now, I think that is a bit explanatory. Now, what is unique values? Unique values in a column are exactly what they mean. Unique values are values without duplicates. These are the values in the columns that are unique and they only appear once. Unique values are basically a count of how many values appear once in a column. So if I have in a column, I have names, and I have, say, I have Nonso, I have Mary, I have Grace, I have Grace again. So I'll go over that again. I have Nonso, I have Mary, I have Grace, and Grace. Unique values is only going to count Nonso 1, Mary 2, making it 2, and Grace, making it 3. It's not going to count Grace again. It's just going to count Grace once. So that's just going to be 3 unique values in that column. That's just what it's telling you. But distinct values is going to count Grace again, and that's just going to be 4 values. So column profile, let's head off to column profile now. Now, column profile just shows you the count of statistics of each column or field. So column profile is just going to show you the count of statistics. Now, when we talk about statistics here, we're basically talking about like the count, the minimum value, and the maximum value. And now you might be wondering, how is this column profile going to help me in understanding the data and figuring out anomalies before I go ahead to start my data cleaning? Now, this is where your column profile is going to come in handy. Imagine in your data set, you are analyzing a data set of, say, babies. You're analyzing a data set of babies, and you have a particular attribute, a particular column that is containing the weight of babies. Profiling that column, getting the column profile of that column is going to show you the count of the values in the column, that is how many values are in the column. It's going to show you the minimum value, that is the minimum age, the minimum note, rather the minimum weight of a baby, and it's going to show you the maximum value, which is the maximum weight of a baby as well. Once you check this out, you can easily be able to pick out a value that is an outlier. For example, imagine we know that if you go online and check online, you see that the average weight of a baby is around 2.5 kilogram. In kilogram, the average weight of a baby is about 2.5 kilogram. Now imagine you see a maximum weight or value of 25.1 kilogram. Now that is a huge outlier. Now with column profile, you'll be able to easily pick that out as, oh, this is saying 25.1, and the average weight of a baby is 2.5. Probably the maximum is around 3.9 kilogram. So 25.1, this could be a data entry error. So maybe the person entering in the data wanted to put 2.51 and think, okay, should I take it as 2.51, or should I go ahead and consult with the consult with my team and ask them for clarifications on what to do? So now we can see how this data profiling comes in handy, how your column quality, your column distribution, and of course your column profile comes in handy in handling, in getting a view of any irregularities with your data before you go ahead and start cleaning. So I'm just going to talk about these terms I talked about earlier, some terms in data profiling. So I said distinct values will show you the count of different values, including duplicates and nulls, while unique values will show you the count of values that appear only once. So I said distinct values shows you the count of different values, including your duplicates and your nulls. And unique values just shows you values that appear only once. So I just wanted to go over this again, just to be sure we are all clear. So I'm just going to take a little break here and let in questions.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Tina here. So just two questions I picked out from the live chat. Somebody's asking, does unique value count null values?
Okay, I'm going to answer that now. Like I said, and as you can see on the screen, unique values does not count null values. It doesn't count null values. It doesn't.
Okay, the second question is distinct values in Excel and SQL doesn't include duplicates. Please explain.
Exactly, exactly. This is what I was talking about. This is where I meant when I said this confused me as well, because from what I learned starting out in Excel and everything, distinct values is just not supposed to include duplicates. But when you come into Power BI and you're learning column distribution and you're learning distinct and unique values, it's a bit of like you have to wire your brain differently, which might not be exactly what you want to do, which might be hard to do at first. So I'll go over what distinct and unique values mean here in Power BI. So you just need to set that explanation aside for Power BI and know that it applies different in Excel and other data analytics tools probably. So in Power BI, distinct values include duplicates and it includes null as well. So I think that's clear, and unique values just do not include duplicates. It's just the count of the values that appear once. So the name is saying distinct, but it's not exactly distinct. I get that, but that is that is the way it works. Going through the Microsoft Learn platform, that's the way it was explained. Distinct contains your duplicates as well as nulls. Thank you for that question. That was a very nice question.
Okay, another person is asking, please, I need more clarification on data profiling and Power Query.
Okay, okay. I'll just go over that quickly. So data profiling and Power Query. Let me just move a little bit to this slide. So what I was trying to say when I started out with, you start out with getting your data. And then once you get your data, you don't want to load your data in first. You want to transform your data. And once you start data transformation, you make use of Power Query. So Power Query is basically just like a little tool, not really necessarily a tool, but just look at it like a little tool you have next to you that's going to help you to transform your data from dirty to clean, that is provided by Power BI for you. And I'm going to show you how this tool works once we get into it. So I don't think you don't need to understand everything, but as we progress, it should get clearer. Now, data profiling. Now, what I explained with data profiling is just like give me a rundown of this person, give me this person's profile, which school did they attend, everything that the features that pertain to them. So data profiling is just giving you a profile of this data. Tell me what is in this data. What is the amount of duplicates I can see in this data? Tell me, can I see the distribution? Can I see the statistics of this data? Can I see the minimum value in this column, the maximum value in this column? That is just what data profiling entails in the most simplest form. It's just having a look at your data to determine if there is any irregularities or anomalies within that data. And you only do this in Power Query. So I think if there are no questions, if Tina has no questions for us for that, we might just move ahead.
Okay, so the next question, somebody is saying, in Power BI, does it mean that every value is a distinct value?
In Power BI, does it mean that every value is a distinct value? No, I don't think I understand. I don't think I understand that question very well. I don't think I understand that question.
Another question here says, by null, do you mean an empty cell in an Excel file or cell with number 0?
By null, I mean an empty cell. And every empty cell that you enter into your Power BI automatically determines it as null. So an empty cell in your Excel workbook is just an empty cell, but once it's loaded into Power BI, you're going to see a small an undercase, a lowercase letter of null, a lowercase null, and then it's going to be slightly italicized. And when we get into Power BI, we're going to see that. I'm going to show you that. So nulls in Power BI is represented with null. It's represented with null. So you could come up with an empty, you could come up with you could start off in with you could start off in Excel workbook with nothing being in that cell, but then once it's loaded into Power BI, it's just going to appear as null. Something is going to be in that cell, but it's just null. Power BI kind of like putting it there. Basically, let me explain what Power BI does to you when you try to get data. When you get data from an Excel workbook, Power BI is not directly um, accessing that workbook. It's connecting, of course, it's connecting to the workbook, but then it's just going to create a new data set and copy the data from that workbook into your data set. That's what Power BI does. It's just like a local connection. That is the local connection in Power BI. So that is why it determines the empty values as null. So let's just move ahead. So moving on. So let's move on. So some data cleaning we're going to do today is we're going to be removing duplicates, we're going to be removing nulls, removing some columns that are unnecessary. So based on your analysis, you're the one that is going to determine this. You're going to determine, oh, is this column really necessary in my analysis? Then if it's not, I might as well just remove it. What is going on? Then we're going to profile data so you can learn more about a specific column before using it. And we will evaluate and transform data types. So in today's session, like I said, we'll remove duplicates, nulls, and columns and apply user-friendly naming conventions to columns, profile data, so you can learn more about it and evaluate and transform data types. So these are just some of the data cleaning you're going to do as you go on and along dealing with dirty data. You're going to determine if there are certain conventions you need to apply in your data cleaning. You're going to need to take into account your stakeholders' needs as well. So now we've been talking about a lot of tips. So I think we should move on to Power BI and we should see things practically for today. But before we do that, let's go over the projects we're going to be working on. So I want to illustrate a bit of all these concepts I've been explaining today. I want to illustrate everything, and I think the best way to do that is to use a mini data cleaning project to explain that. So here we go. Here we go. So a mini project. As a data analyst working in Palmorial Manufacturing Group Nigeria, you've been given a data set and have been required to perform basic data cleaning using Power BI to prepare the data for analysis. Now, you can clearly see that the goal of data cleaning is to prepare your data before you can analyze it. So the scenario is you as a data analyst working for a manufacturing group and you've been given an HR data. I think I forgot to include that here. You've been given an HR data, an employee data to perform basic data cleaning in. So these are the pointers that are given from your stakeholder. So apart from regular data cleaning that we're going to entail, these pointers are going to help us. So one thing I want you to take note, if you have a pen and paper, you jot it down. If you don't, just keep note of it in your head. Just keep it somewhere there because we are going to be making reference to this once we get into Power BI. So let's go over the first pointer given to us. Generally, there are two genders in the organization. However, some employees refuse to disclose their gender. You will need to assign a generic gender status to these employees. So note 1 or pointer 1, any gender that is empty will replace with a generic gender. So we're just going to pick a word to replace the generic gender. Probably we'll just use like a non-binary. So assign a generic gender to empty gender in the gender column of employees. So let's go to pointer 2 now. Some employees are without salary because they are no longer with the company. You will need to take those employees out. So if we're dealing with a salary column and we figure out that there is no salary in this, we're going to remove these rows because this is pointers from our stakeholders. Now, this is what I was saying when I was talking about dealing with null values, when I was saying that it depends. Now, this is a context, and your stakeholder is clearly telling you that if you find a null anywhere salary is not in, you should delete these values. You should remove these rows. You should take it out. It's not needed for your analysis. Now, in a typical settings, you might have to be the one to come to this conclusion. If you're not working, if you're just downloading the data set online and doing this, you might be the one to come to this conclusion of what you should do. And it all depends on your analysis. For some analysis, people fill the values with zero. For other analysis, you just decide to remove this from your analysis entirely. Now, the third pointer is, lastly, some departments are indicated as null. These departments would also need to be taken out. Now, we're seeing this null here is a capital null. This null is an entry by a data entry officer or someone who handles data. It was entered in as a capital null. So we should probably be seeing this in our data set once we go on. We might need to reference this as we go along, but now that we've gotten a feel of it at least, let's go ahead to Power BI. So I'm heading off to Power BI now. So I'm heading off to Power BI now, and this is the Power BI interface. Like I said, once we come to Power BI, this is the first thing we see. We see a little pop-up box, which we are going to close. And then you're not going to see, this is another pop-up box, but this is for someone who has started working already, and you have some files that probably you haven't saved. You're going to just want to save it. But you're not going to see this if you haven't started working in Power BI or something. I'm not going to expand this filters pane, and I'm going to expand my fields. Okay, expand this and expand this as well. Now, this is where I said this is where I say the data is going to show in when we load it in. So let's go to the report view. So now we've come into the Power BI interface, and we want to perform data cleaning, and we'll be given a data by a manufacturing group. So the first thing to do is to go to our get data, which is under the home, which can be found in the home tab. So we can see get data. Now we know the data comes from an Excel workbook, so we can go directly here and just import data from a Microsoft Excel workbook. What we can go through the long journey and start from here and click on Excel workbook. And then you're going to get an interface to your files, and I'm just going to pick this and I'm going to click on open. So Power BI is going to establish a connection to that data that I've selected, and this navigator window is going to pop up. Basically, this navigator window is showing you the data, the source of your data, which is 10 days of Power BI and Excel workbook. So when you see .xlxx, this is an Excel workbook, and then you're going to see the sheets you're trying to. So just clicking on this, a preview is going to be loaded of the data. So you can see the data set here. And looking at this a little bit, you can see the null that I was trying to explain, that Power BI is going to put an empty value, just going to replace. So I said I have the load and transform data here, but it's not exactly active now. So I'm just going to click on the sheet to activate that. Once I tick this box here, then I can be able to decide if I want to load my data or if I want to transform my data, which will take me to Power Query. So you're not going to be loading your data first. You're not going to want to do that. Data is going to come in dirty format for most of the time. So you're majorly going to want to transform your data. So I'm going to come here and click on this little transform data. And then once I do that, you notice that I get to have two interfaces here. So this is the Power BI desktop I was on earlier. And then so this is the Power BI desktop that I was on earlier. Just trying to paste this. So this is the Power BI editor that I was in earlier. And then this is the little window that popped up here, the Power Query editor. So once I choose transform data, that's going to pop up. Just a moment. Let me try to fix this. I think I've got that sorted out. So I'm going to go over the getting data part again. I apologize for this. So I'm going to go over to getting my data. So start off with getting data from an Excel workbook. I'm going to go down and select my workbook. I'm going to click on open. Like I said, once that opens, you're going to see a navigator window where you can just come here and you see a preview of the data set as well. And now when you're ready to load or transform your data, you're going to come right here to this checkbox and tick on this. And then you're going to see load or transform data. Now I said you'd need to be transforming your data first before you load your data for most of the time. So click on transform your data. And once you click on transform data, Power Query Editor is going to open. Now, you're not going to see this. This is because I have this already checked before because I always find this handy. But this is what you're going to see when you come into the interface at first. Okay, I think this was because the data was loaded in earlier. Let me just come here and read this. Sorry for this. This was because the data was loaded in when I had the issue. So once you load your data to Power Query Editor and you hit the transform button, this is just what you're going to see first. So you're going to see a queries on the left. This is showing you sheet one. So this is a query showing you the table of data you have, the name of this data. You can find it on the right here. Your query settings, the properties showing you the name is sheet one. Now, if this data, you might need to be writing any measures or anything or using the data, or somebody might need to get access to this, your report, you might want to rename this to something explanatory. So I'm just going to come here and change this to, let's say I'm dealing with an employee data, I can choose HR data, and then that's okay. And then you see automatically it changes here as well as HR data. Also, beneath the properties, you can see something called an applied steps, and you can see that steps have been taken for you already. Now, Power BI is going to assign steps for every process you take. For everything you do in Power BI, interacting with your data, there's going to be a drop down of an applied step. So this is where Power BI will start from, and then it's going to give you this. This is where you're going to start with. So basically, when you load, you're going to find, for most of the time, 3 steps already apply for you. And then now you're going to see that Power BI offers you various tabs to help you. You're going to see your Home tab, you see your Transform tab, you're going to see your Add column. You can add columns if you want other columns to your data. You're going to see your View tab, you're going to see your Tools and Help. So basically, you're going to be using your Home tab and your Transform tab for most of the times, but you can also make use of your Add tab, and you're going to make use of your View tab as well. So when I discussed data profiling, I was talking about the View tab, if you can remember. I talked about finding column quality, column distribution, and column profile under the data preview in the View tab. So I'm on the View tab right now, and under the data preview, I can see checkboxes of all of this. They have not been ticked yet, but they will be soon. We're just trying to get ourselves familiarized with the interface first. So this is just what you see once you come here. And then once you come here like this, you can see something like a formula. Now, if you have access to Excel, you know that usually you see formulas on top of your table if you have a knowledge of Excel. Now, Power Query Editor uses a different kind of formula. It's kind of like called an M language. It's called M language, I think. Yeah, it's called an M language. So that's what Power Query offers you. So you can perform transformation also using those M language, but I find that that is not really necessary to even to learn or to know for now. So first, when you're in Power BI, you will notice also that you have this little drop down box. If you can see your column headers, column 1, column 2, column 3, and of course column 4, and then column 5 here. Looking at this, you're going to notice a little drop down box next to it. When you click on this, you can be able to see what is in this drop down box, like what is in that column. You can see you have 0, 1, 2, 3 up to a certain amount. Now you can see a limit of 1000 values reached. Power BI is only going to show you like little preview of like when you look under here, you can see column profiling is based on top 1000 rows. Just the top 1000 rows. So as I was saying, you have a little drop down box here. This drop-down box also acts as kind of like a filter. No, not kind of like, it acts like a filter. So it acts like a filter. So you can come here and on tick a box that you do not want. Let's say you don't want the value with 0, you can come here and just untick that. I'm just going to tick this. You can also see a sort ascending, a sort descending. You can decide to sort in ascending order, sort in descending order. You can decide to remove an empty values in this row. You can decide to use a number filter. A number filter is just basically saying select only numbers that equal, let's say equal 2 equals 3, or does not equal a particular number. So every column has its own little drop down box next to it. I can go to just see a little bit of the data inside it. Every column has that. So now that we have this, first of all, when I come to data, I want to start off with, okay, so I'm just going to come over again if I check the chat box and I see people are not getting this well, because I know this might be a little strange at first. So looking at disappoint. So I apologize for the little break-in. This is due to network. Network connections there is always not the very best, and it can always disappoint you even when you need it the most. So I'll just need to now to assess that it's going good now before I continue, because I don't want you guys to miss out on this. So I'm just going to continue now. So I'll take it a little step back. So I said I noticed that Power Query Editor is not exactly picking my names and placing it on the right place I want it to be. It's not picking my column headers. This name is supposed to be headers. My column headers, column 1, column 2, column 3, they are not descriptive enough. This is not what I need. What I need is name, gender, department, and salary staying on top of that. That is what I need. So I I'm just going to take it from the top. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to start Power BI again. Understanding this step is very important, so I don't want anybody to miss that. So I'm just going to start all over from the very beginning. So now let's all be calm and let's all try to get this together. So I'm starting all over again. So first thing I'm heading off to is the Power BI desktop. I've just clicked on it. So I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry for all of this. I'm moving on now. So when you come into Power BI desktop, you see this little pop-up window which you're going to close, and then I'm going to close this as well because you're not going to see this if it's your first time Power BI. I'm just going to expand this filter field and fields panel. Now, once you come into Power BI, you want to get the data, you want to perform data cleaning on. So you can get data from an Excel workbook here as well. So I'm just going to get data from here. So I'll click on an Excel workbook and then I'm going to select my data set of choice. And once I click on my data set of source, data Power BI rather is going to open in navigator window, which is just showing me my data and the sheet, the data table, which is same thing as called it like a sheet. So I'm just going to click on this here and we're going to see a little preview of the data here. And when we look at that and it's looking all good that this is indeed the data set I'm supposed to receive from business, I'm just going to come over here, click on this box here, and immediately I do that, you notice that this load and transform data here gets activated. Like I click on this, it gets activated. So it doesn't get activated until you select a data table or until you select your sheet of data. So once that is done, I'm going to come on here to click on transform my data. I'm not going to load my data first. I want to clean my data. So I'm going to transform my data. So when I click transform my data, I'm going to show you what you have now here. Looking at this, you have your Power BI desktop, which is the one we're working in. And now you see a Power Query editor, which comes up. So you're going to have like two windows now to work with. So Power Query Editor, like I said earlier, is the editor for data transformation. Now, I said coming from the left, we're going to see that we have our queries here. So Power BI queried the data source to get this sheet of data. So this is our queries called sheet 1. Now, I said if you come over to the right, to the very end of the right hand side, you're going to see the properties, which is the name of this query. And you can also decide to rename it if it's not descriptive enough. So I'm just going to name this to HR data. Now you're also going to see applied steps here. Now Power BI is going to apply steps once data is loaded. You're going to majorly see these 3 steps already outlined for you. So this is it. And then you're going to see that Power BI provides you with some helpful tabs to help you in data transformation. You come to your Home tab, your Transform, your Add column, and View. And if I'm just going to come to this View tab now. And if you notice when I was discussing View tab, I talked about how, okay, I don't think I've entered this in here. I'm going to click Enter. So that has been entered successfully, HR data. Then you come over here and you're going to see your HR data. So I'm coming up to this View tab here to see a data preview. Now remember when I was discussing data profiling, I'm saying in the View tab, in the data preview, you're going to see your column quality, your column distribution, and your column profile. So I'm just showing you, these things in Power BI. We're still going to come to it. Let's move to the Home tab. Home tab, you can see this close and apply. This is when you're done with your cleaning. You can now come here to close and apply all the transformation you've made here. Now you can see a new source as well. So if you want to still import another data, you can come here and still do that as well. So there are basically other features here as remove columns, remove rows that we're going to be using as well. You can see under this transform tab, you can see some helpful features here. Let's go over to the middle part. Let's go back to our data table. You can see that there's a formula right above this. Now this formula is for this applied steps. For every applied step, Power BI automatically writes a formula down for you. I think this formula is written in M language. Power BI's Power Query's M language. So you can either apply a data transformation to your data table using the M language or just doing it, which is by helpful features, which you can find on your Home tab, your Transform, and Add column. So to start off with, let's get into the data cleaning and the whole data profiling field now. Let's get into it. We've gone through the Power Query interface, and I think we all like have a handle of that. So coming on here now, you're seeing the column header is column 1, you're seeing column 2, column 3, column 4, and these are not descriptive. Looking at row 1, this is your column header, name, gender, department, salary, but Power BI is not saying that as well. Power BI, sorry, Power Query did not exactly interpret the data which you wanted it to. But there are helpful features here that will help you to transform that data. Also, we notice this column here. Let's look at this column 1 now. Column 1 is this column really helpful for analysis? No. This column is just containing basically numbers here, 0, 1, 2, 3. This column is not helpful for analysis. So now one thing I would always say is start off with trying to break down your data. When I mean breakdown, I mean remove any columns that is unnecessary. So Power BI does not have to process too much once we are applying other steps. I'll come over that again. So you need to try to remove any column that is irrelevant to your data set at the very beginning or start, so you can cut down on the amount of columns and the amount of data that the Power Query is going to process at each stage. Now, I think I'm making a mistake sometimes interchanging Power BI, Power Query. So you guys should just understand, sometimes when I'm calling Power BI, I'm referring to Power Query here. So I just want to remove this column before I start performing changes to this data, because I don't want it to have to take up a lot of processing space. I'm just going to, so to select a column, you just click on the column header here and it automatically selects everything. So if I want to select column 2, I click on this and it's selected. So that's how to select a column. Now, once you select a column, so the formula thing I explained here is that I explained that Power Query just a little diversion. Sorry, guys. I just want to explain the formula thing. The formula thing I said is Power Query uses like an M language for every applied step. So if you go over here source, you're going to see that there is a new formula here saying they're getting your, look at this, Excel.workbook file.content, and this is the source. They're taking it from this source from my laptop. So Power Query automatically every step comes with its own M language. So if I were to just come ahead to, I can just copy this formula and paste it and use it to perform a function as well. But today I'm not going to be going into the formula function. It's just that you can see it on your screen and I want you to know what it means. We're not going to be delving into the formulas. So let me go back to where I was. I was talking about the columns and removing this column before you move ahead. So I said you can easily select the column by just clicking on it and clicking on it. And then you select everything in that column. So now I've selected this column 1 and I want to delete this column from my data. I don't want this column anymore. So how do I do that? I have two features. I can come up here under my manage columns in my home tab. I'm in the home tab right now, guys. I hope you can see I'm in the home tab. So I come to manage columns and I see this little remove columns. Then I see like a drop down box here. So I'm just going to select that drop down. And it offers me two options: remove columns, remove other columns. So I can choose to remove this column, column 1, or keep this column and remove every other column in the data set. That's what this second option provides. So let's go by it again. Remove columns, I can decide to remove just column 1, which is what I want to do in this case. But if you want to remove the other columns in your data set, you can just decide to remove other columns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just remove this column, and that was going to work. Now, Power Query, and you can come here, apply steps, and see, oh, there's a new step, removed columns. But if this was a mistake and I decide that no, I actually do want these columns, I can come back here and just delete this, and my columns is back. So the column is still selected, so I'm going to go to remove columns and choose remove other columns. And now you see that every other column was removed and I only have column 1, which is not what I need in this case at all. So I'm just going to go back here and remove it. So let me do the step. Let me do what I really want to do. I want to remove these columns. I'm going to just remove columns, and now that's been done. But I was trying to explain that there are two ways of doing this. You can also do this by, after selecting it, let me just start all over. I want to remove column 1. What am I going to do? I'm going to go to column 1, highlight it, select it. Once that's selected, I'm going to right click, and then this box is going to come up showing me remove other columns. Now I find that this is the fastest way to do any data transformation. Just right click and select what you want. So now I'm going to click on remove, and that's done. Now that that's been done, let me move on to the second data cleaning step rather. So now these columns are not descriptive. I don't like them. I don't want to see them. I just want to see my name, my gender, my department, and salary on top. So let's get this. Let's get my row 1 on top. Let's get this on top. How do we do this? We're still in the home tab. Under the transform, we're going to see this useful feature, use first row as headers. I'm hovering over it now and I can see a little definition there. It's going to promote the first row of this table into column headers. This is what I want, so that's fine. So I'm just going to click on it and automatically I see a step, promoted headers. Now anytime you effect a change with your column headers, Power BI will go ahead to do like call it, I too know, and it will go ahead and change the type. Like I'm not asking it to change the type for me yet. I can go ahead and change the data type of each columns, but Power BI will just go ahead and automatically do that for me. So look at where I promoted my headers, and Power BI automatically did the change type for me. But I'm just going to leave that, and I'm going to go over it when I want to change my data type. So let's go ahead and change our data types now. Change data types, we can start off with, I discussed this little drop down box here. Can you also see that there is also a little box here as well, where you can see ABC, you can see ABC here. Now this box, this is where you're going to change the data type. I'm going to click on it, and this is what you're going to see. Decimal number, you're going to see date and time, date, you're going to see time. So data types are basically a representation of what you have in your column. If you have a number format, you can represent it in decimals if you want. If you have something that like a text, you represent it using this ABC, which is text. So now I see that this is ABC, this is represented as text, so I don't need to deal with that. So are we going to be doing this one after the other? Are we going to be going, okay, we have dealt with the first column, we'll go to the second one, we'll go to the third one. That's kind of like, imagine I have so many, looking at this, okay, hold on. Looking under here, you can see 6 columns. So I have just 6 columns now. Imagine I have so many columns. Am I going to be going over this process? How tiring is that going to be and not time effective? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my control on my keyboard. I'm just going to do a control A. So control A is going to highlight everything. So I just did a control A to highlight everything in my table. And once I do that, I'm going to come up here to transform tab. I'll click on transform. Then when you see detect data type, I'll click on detect data type. Can you read the little box there? It's saying it automatically detects the data types of the currently selected columns. But this is not 100% accurate, because you can see here like saying data type text. So what this does is just to detect it as just text. I'm going to see everything now here. If you look here, everything now here in my data type is basically just going to be, let me do that again. Let me go through it again, Control A and detect data type. So I can see it as, look at this, you can see it's ABC, ABC, everything is still the same ABC. So basically what I just do to cut down on the work is I detect everything as text, and then I go ahead and go through each row to just select the ones that are numeric and decide what I'm giving it, if it's numeric or if it's a date, and decide the data type I'm giving it. So going through my data set, I can see I'm having just text, 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 except the salary column, which is the salary, obviously. So I want to come here and I want to change that to like a fixed decimal number that's going to give it this little dollar sign. So when I try to do that, change column type, this pop-up window comes. Let's go to it. This selected column already has an existing conversion. Would you like to replace it or preserve, or add a new conversion as a separate step? So I would like to add this as a new step. So I'll click on that and I get this error. Once you see this error, okay, this was the error I was talking about in column qualities, where you get error. Power BI refers to something that error if there's a problem in handling it. You can also see this red underlining telling you, oh, there's a problem. You have errors in this data set. So what exactly happened? Why can I not change this data type? This happens due to your settings, like your region settings. Now, this data type, I'm trying to change this using a dollar settings, and my default settings for this is Nigerian. I'm going to show you what I mean by this. So let's go over it. Let me get you to my file. Just come to this little file tab here, file. Then we go over to options and settings. You see options and settings, I'm on it. And I come over here and I select my options. Let me show you what I'm seeing. That's selected. Now you see, this is just the options and settings. So this is for global, this is for current file. I'm going to come to my current file and I'm going to come to my regional settings. And you can see the locale for import. This is telling me, read this and you see it determines the regional settings used to interpret numbers, dates, and time. So this is saying that they're using this Nigeria format to interpret the number and it's not doing the job well. So I just have to change this because this should be in dollars. This is like a United States. The data entry, this is the United States. It should be in United States, and this is like dollars. Let me just try United States. Okay, I can see English United States here. So I'll change that to English United States. And then I'm going to click on OK. And now that that's done, I'm just going to come over to my applied steps here. This was the last step I did that gave me this error. I'm going to delete it. And then I'm going to come over here and I'll repeat that again. So I'm going to change it to fixed decimal number. I'll add new step. And we do not get an error anymore. So sometimes when you encounter errors dealing with both numbers and date time, you might want to go to your local, your regional settings and see if there's a problem there. For most of the times, that is the issue with it. So now that we've gone ahead to determine the data type of the salary, looking good. And now this is where I want to emphasize on the importance of picking the right data types. If the salary was So for the salary, I could want to know the sum of the total salary paid, and I will need to have it in a form that I can make calculations with it. If it is in text format, I cannot do that. So this is why detecting the right data type is necessary. So now that we have that sorted out, let's go over the cleaning now. Let's start the proper data cleaning. Though we have started already, we've replaced the column headers, we've removed irrelevant columns, yes, and we've detected the data types. That's cool. We've done 3 data cleaning today for now. So let's move ahead. Let's catch up with time so we can take questions at the end because I'm sure there might be questions. So let's move. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go over and I want to go to the view tab and I want to start data profiling. So I select column distribution. Column distribution is going to show me the distinct values and the unique values. So this is why I had to explain that earlier on. So when we come to here, it doesn't get So now that I've selected the column distribution under the view tab, what I'm going to do is I want to remove the duplicate. So to remove duplicates, I'm just going to do a little Control A to select everything. And once that's selected, I will move on to my Home tab. On my Home tab, I will see Remove Rows. So I'm just going to select Remove Rows. And then I'm going to see Remove Duplicates, which is fine. Now, I'm removing duplicates based on every entry because you can have different employees with the same name but in different locations and in different departments. People can have the same name, so just using a name is not like it's not a good identifier to remove duplicates in this case. I'm going to click on remove duplicates, and you see here automatically a new step has been added, remove duplicates. Now I want to show you, like, you can't really sit and you're wondering, oh, has my duplicate been removed? Has this been removed? How can I really tell? So this is what I found very helpful, this column profiling. That is why I went first to highlight it so we can see it. So I'm going to show you how it was before I removed duplicates and after I removed duplicates. So let's go to the before and we'll come to the after. So this is before. Let's just focus on only the name column for now. So for the name column, you can see you have 860 unique values. And I say this unique values is showing you the values that count of the values that occur once. You get me? Count of the values that occur once. So 860 names are appearing once for now. Then let's go to the after and see how many names. You see 862 names are appearing once. Now, after removing duplicates, that means there were some names that were appearing more than once that were duplicate values. So those names have been removed. So probably we had like 2 duplicates in our data set. So let me go over this again. We had, before we removed duplicates, we had 860 unique values in our name column. Then after we remove duplicates, what are we having? 862 unique values. And if you see here, when you're accessing on this, you see that this thing is helping you, showing you removing duplicates. So you can tell that duplicates, if there's duplicates in this value, it has been removed. If there was none, it will still be the same 860. So I'm going to take questions. I'm going to take questions. So let me just move on. I'll take questions and we'll go by it. So now that duplicates have been removed, let's start dealing with nulls. So let's go to the little drop down box here of name. So I like to move from the left to the right so I know, okay, I've sorted out this, I'm moving on. So let's start from here. Our little drop down box can help you with seeing nulls. You can scroll down through and see nulls sometimes, but then you can't see this because the list may be incomplete. You get. How are you able to tell this? You go to your view tab for data profiling. I'm just going to turn this off because column distribution has served its purpose for now. I'm going to turn on something else, column quality. And when I turn on column quality, it shows me the valid, the error, and empty. So valid is going to tell me any row that has an entry in it. Error is going to tell me anything that has error, and empty is telling me, oh, you have a missing value in this. So this column is an ideal column because it's valid, 100% valid values. Ideally, we don't want to deal with empty. We are going to love having 100% valid. Then let's come over here. We are seeing that we have 4% empty from our gender. 4%. And you can already tell by seeing this null that you have 4% empty. You can come here to this drop down box and you can also see it here as well, null. I'm just going to click cancel. Let's scroll over first so we know we are addressing those in the gender column. Let's come to the departments now. Departments, we check and we see our empty. Our empty is what? 0%. But we are seeing null here. But this null is indeed an entry. It is an entry, but it is not a very good entry. If you can remember, they're telling us lastly, some departments are indicated as null. These departments would need to be taken out. So these null values need to be taken out from our data set. We need to know that. So if we have something that is null, how can we tell? In case we can't see this null here now, imagine this null is a little below this data set. This drop down is going to help us to see it, the null just over here. That's why I kind of like it as well. And we come to our salary and we see we have 4% empty, and then we scroll over here and we see in our location we have 0%. Let me scroll over to the ratings. We still have 0% in the ratings as well. So we have just 3 columns to address. We have our gender column, our department column, and our salary column. Conveniently, they are all sitting pretty next to each other. So we'll just go ahead and address them. So we start off with gender. Now this is a null entry. Usually, sometimes when we have null values, we replace with just unknown but now in this case, we're told by our stakeholder that people that did not disclose their genders, we should assign a generic gender to them. I'm just going to select this column by clicking on it. Once that is done, I'll take a little move to my home tab, and under the transform, you're going to see replace values. I'm going to choose replace values, and the value to find, I'm going to say please find null. So this is null. I type that in, then I come here and I want you to replace null with a generic gender, which I decide to use as non-binary. You can decide to pick anything else depending on what the business problem entails. So I pick non-binary and I click on OK. And automatically there is looking at the empty, I have 0% that's been filled with a value non-binary. If you come over to your applied steps, you see a replaced value. Now moving on, we have dealt with the gender. Now we just have 2 edits to deal with now. So we come to our department column. We are asked to remove any entry that contains no in the department. Let me go over that again. Generally, lastly, some departments are indicated as no. This department will also need to be taken out. Let's take it out. Let's take it out. So we're going to select this department. It's not being detected as no now. So I'm just going to use replace values. I just want to replace my null with null. I just want to indicate that this is indeed an empty cell. So I've done that and it has indicated here. Now, with this column still selected, I'm going to right click. Oh, sorry, I'm going to come to the drop down box here and I'm going to just let's just remove empty. So I just clicked on remove empty. Let me go over that again. I think that was too fast. So let me delete the step and go over it again. So I have empty of 3%. So what I did was I replaced the null with just the simple null that Power BI recognizes. And now selecting this column, I'm going to go to the little drop down box and hmm? Yes. Okay, I'm hearing I should go over the replace values again. So this is the last replace that I did. So let me just use this one to go over it again. So I'm going to just delete this here and go over that step again. So now I have capital nodes. So we're starting from when I've picked the gender, and now we just have to edit department and salary. So now, having this department, I want to replace this capital node with just the regular old node, small letter node that Power BI recognizes. So I'm still in my home tab, guys. I'm still in the home tab. So in my home tab, I'm going to come over here to the transform and click on this replace values. Replace values will show me the value to find, and I want it to find the capital null in that column because I selected the column to begin with. So it's going to find it in that column, and I'm going to replace it with just this null, and I'm going to click OK. And immediately that is done, let me show you something. Let's go to this step here. You're seeing your empty to be what? 0%, nothing, because this null is accepted as a valid entry. When you come over here, you can be able to tell now that you have 3% null here. So now that I can tell that, I just want to go ahead and remove it because the stakeholder is telling me remove any department that is not, this department needs to be taken out. So I'm just going to come over to this drop down box here and select remove the empty values. Empty values or no values are basically the same. So it's going to do that. So you can see an icon here that is already filtered to remove rows that are empty. And you can also tell here that it's now 0%. So we've handled gender and we've handled department. Let's go ahead and handle salary. So we come off to this salary and we're going to repeat the same step again. We're just going to come here and we're going to remove empty. And we see that that has been done as well. So I'm going to go over a little drop down here just to check. See, if I didn't do this, I wouldn't have noticed that probably someone made a mistake in entering Lagos. Instead of entering Lagos, they entered Lagos with number 0 instead of O. So I would need to address this. And how do I address values that I want to replace with other values? I simply use replace values. So the column is selected that I want to do that. I go to replace values and I pick. Okay, I'm hearing I'm a bit fast, so I'll try to slow down, guys. So the value I want to find is Lagos, so I'll just write Lagos. And I'm replacing Lagos with what? With the normal Lagos I want. And I'm going to click on OK. And then I'm going to come to this drop down to check if it has been done. And yes, I only have one Lagos. So definitely. So this is just the basic data cleaning for a very simple data set of just one file. Now I'm wondering, I'd like to go over this again so everybody understands from the very top. This is just, we have handled all the problems, but I would like to start off with your questions to enable me know where you have slight issues understanding, to enable me know where I went a little too fast for you to grasp. So this is just the basic data cleaning we've done. We've been able to rename. We've renamed the queries to a name we're able to understand. We've replaced column headers. We've replaced values. We've deleted a column we didn't like. We thought it was going to be very stressful handling all the time when it has to refresh that. So I'm just going to wait for Tina to get me questions from the chat so I can respond to them and maybe show you the parts that you have issues understanding.
Okay, so the first question I have here, someone is saying I don't understand data types, so she wants you to explain data types again.
Okay. Data types, each variable you have comes with its own data types. Data types are basically ways of understanding your variables or giving them an identity per se. So we have text data types and we have numeric data types and we have date and time data types. So let me come over here and show you what I mean exactly. So these are the data types that are provided for you. You have a kind of binary data type, you have a true and false data type, you have your time data type. Basically, data type helps you in performing your calculations. If Power BI can correctly detect your data type, once you're trying to do something, it's just like you're telling something to do A plus B, but you're not giving it the right data type. It cannot do it for you. If your if your time is being represented with something else with a text, it might not be really helpful. So you come here and you see you have your percentage data types, you have all of these, you have text, you have all numbers. So I just think that's all about data types. I can just say data types is just you have a value here that is like an attribute, like a text. Anything that you feel like it's text, use a text data type for it, use an ABC. But if it's not text, if it cannot be if it should be, if you will need it for calculations or it is a date, it is a time, you need to change the data type. So basically, what you're going to be working with, the basic data types you work with is you work with your text, you work with your date and time data type, and you work with numeric data types. So this data type I selected here was a fixed decimal number with a a dollar sign. This is a numeric data type. Why did I select this? Because dollar signs comes in like dollars and then cents. So I just wanted, in case there is anything else at after the decimal point, let's just select that. So I'm just scrolling to show you the data. So can we get another question?
Okay, somebody's asking how was the data type for the salary changed?
Okay. Um, how do I go over this? Okay, I'm just going to add another step to this then. Data types are right next to your column headers. So you see name, what is right next to it? This little ABC box here. Let's come to the salary. What's right next to it? This dollar sign here. So this is the data type. Look at me. When I'm clicking on it, I see a box circling it. So then I click on it and I select it. So this salary, let's say I decide to change it back to text now. This is it. This is how I changed the data type. Now salary is in a text format. But in this text format, I cannot perform calculations with salary. It is basically not useful. So this is how you select your data type. You come to this icon and you pick one that suits your description and then it's selected and it's showed here as a changed type. So I'm just going to come here and delete this because we do not want this data type. So I hope that has been helpful explanation. Let's take another question, shall we? Drop your questions in the chat box so Tina can find them. If there's anything you want me to maybe go over, just let me know.
Okay, somebody is saying if the duplicates are removed, should the numbers not reduce instead of adding up? I think you can answer both questions together. Somebody is also asking which should be lesser between the unique and distinct values.
Okay. Let's go over that. Let's go to your view tab. Both questions are a little bit similar. Let me. Oh, I didn't talk about one of these view tabs. Just remember a little bit. So let me go over to before and after I remove duplicates to explain this question. Let me explain something that I think I didn't really explain earlier now. Let's see. Power BI is basically the column let me get this right. The data profiling or the column profiling is based on only the top 1000 rows. I think I forgot to mention this or I didn't emphasize on this enough. So it is based on just the top 1000 rows. So based on that, let me try to explain this to you. We started off with this in our name column again. We had 930 distinct values and 860 unique values based on this. And then after removing duplicates, we now have 862 unique values. What I'm saying is earlier on we had 860 unique values. So this is telling us basically within that 1000 rows, within that 1000 rows here, the unique values there were just 860. But after removing duplicates now, some of the rows of data were deleted and now more rows have been kind of like pushed up. Now we have 862 unique values. I don't know if this is explanatory, if this is getting my point across. I don't know if this is getting my point across. Because as you delete duplicate, the amount of data, your rows of data is going to obviously decrease, and some data are going to be pushed forward. That is why you see that your distinct values is also increasing. Because if you come here, let me take this a little bit slow. If you come before we remove duplicates, we see we have just 930 distinct. Then when we come after we remove duplicates, we see we're having more than that, which is 931. I'm just saying that this also happens because once you delete duplicates, your duplicates can also occur in the top 1000 rows. And once that happens, um, the rows below that are kind of like pushed up as well because you delete some rows, kind of like those ones like move forward to like fill it up. I don't know if that's explanatory enough. Any other thing I can use to explain that? Don't think I have a better thing. In our Q&A session, I'll try to see if I can come up with a better explanation that would help you understand that. But this is the best I think I can come up with to explain that. Should we take another question?
Okay, some people are asking if we can get this data for practice. Yes, we're going to share the data set after the class. So nothing to worry. And the recording will be available. You can always go through the process over again because I know it's the first time for some people. So gradually, when you watch the video over again and you maybe practice on your own, you would understand better. So I'm going to pick another question here that said, so when all these are removed, um, is it done in rows or just the column? Somebody is also asking, won't removing the empty values affect our data set? I think they are similar. So
Yes. I like this question. Interesting. Nice question. So once all this is done, it is done in rows and not in columns. So any row that contains that null, any row that contains that empty values is automatically removed. Let me see Sundance Blumsin in Sundance Blumsin. Let me see if there's anything I can see. Raina gambling in nine. Okay, let me show you that. Let me show you what exactly I mean. So your question is, the person is asking, let me put this word. The person is asking, once I remove values, once I'm removing null or empty values in my data set, is it done in columns or is it done in rows? Meaning if I choose to remove a null value, would they just remove the null value from one column or will it be removed row wise? So I'm saying it will be removed row wise and I'm going to just illustrate that. So let me show you before I remove the rows. Let me show you where we had null. Now, this was before we still had null values in this applied step. Let me show you one null value. So let's look at row 9. Row 9 we had salary of null. And you know I went ahead to remove null salary because it's not needed. And row 9 we're having what? We're having Reina gambling here. So let me come up to the very end after we've effected all our changes to check. So when you come to row 9 again, what happened? We are not finding Reina anymore. Reina seems to be missing because there was a null value in the salary column. So everything that had to do with it was removed from our data set. Was that explanatory enough? I'll go over it again. It is removed row-wise. We don't need that entry at all. We're not just going to remove that salary, we're going to remove every entry in that particular row that is containing a null. So it applies to the department as well as the salary, as well as the salary. Should, let's go over it again. Let me just repeat this because I might have moved a little too fast. So before I remove the null, before I filter to remove all these nulls, I'll come to my replace value. I'm still having a null value here in row 9. The name of this null value is Reina Gambling, and there is a null in salary here. And according to my stakeholder, I'm supposed to remove these null values. So of course, I had to remove it. And now let's check the last step we took and check our row 9 again. We can't find Reina, so it has been removed. Reina is not just there, and Reina has been removed twice. It's just removed because there was a null value in the salary. So is there any questions we should take up? I think that answers the two questions Tina put forth.
So somebody is asking, for gender, what was initially there before you changed to non-binary? Is non-binary a gender, or can one use prefer not to say?
Yes, exactly. So this is a very, very interesting question and a very, very smart person. I like the thought process, I like the thinking of the person. That's really cool. So I'm taking the step back, I'm moving further in my plat steps to show you what exactly was in the gender. And you can see that it contains no. And the stakeholder is telling me I should assign a, what did he call it again? A generic gender to this data type, to this null values in gender. So I would say it's something generic that we can apply to it. If you choose to use prefer not to say, that would work well as that will work fine too. But you might want to confirm with the stakeholder that okay, if I decide to use prefer not to say, it solves the problem, right? The schools also use that as well. So I think that just depends on you as the data analyst. You can use prefer not to say because when you go ahead to collect data from people, people choose male, people choose female, and sometimes people just are not comfortable disclosing their gender in forms. So it's okay to use prefer not to say. It's okay to just come here and go to your find and replace and use prefer not to say as well. But in this case, I was asked to pick a generic gender. So I searched online and tried to do a little research on what a generic gender could be. And the best I could come up with is non binary. So that's why I decided to just use that. So it started off with null values, and then I did a find and replace values. And at the end, I got my non binary. So I'm going to take up another question. I'm going to be taking another question from the chat.
Okay, so somebody is asking, can we say the data is now clean?
Okay, okay. Yeah. Looking at this now, we've removed all inconsistencies, we've removed nulls, we've removed duplicates. Yes, you have a clean data set here. Yes, we have a clean data set here as well. Yeah, we have a clean data set here as well. So looking at this, we have fixed the column headers, we've replaced nulls. Okay, we're going to take one more question. We'll take one more question.
Okay, so Chidera is asking, column profiling is based on top 1,000 rows. What happens to the other rows? Let's say you need to remove empty. Will it remove for the entire data set or just that top 1,000 rows?
Okay, this is a good question as well. Column profiling based on the top 1,000 rows is not talking about our data cleaning step. It's talking about providing us the statistics into what is in our column, the top 1,000 of our columns. But once you remove your empty values, it's removing your empty values for everything. It's going to replace your empty values for everything. So it's not just that. You can also see, let me try to show you something now. View, sorry. This is for all the rows. So it's removing your empty, you're removing your empty values for all the rows. Okay, how can you be sure apart from just looking at column profiling? You can come to this little drop down box here, which is going to just help you see exactly. You're not seeing any null. If you're seeing a null, you can tell that there's still an empty value that needs to be cleaned. That is why I still advise you to always check your drop down box to be able to ascertain if there's anything missing, if there's any null values in it as well. Also, I think I in all our data preview options, I didn't explain the column profile. So I'm just going to select the column profile for a particular, let's just use salary first and use the column profile. So this column profile is showing me that I have a count of 943 rows. So this column profile is showing me the statistics of data. So this is where I was talking about that you can get a mean and max. So from this, you can tell from this employee data, the minimum salary paid to an employee is $28,130, and the maximum paid is $119,930. So if you were dealing with a column that you were just like, oh, this value seems outrageous, this is not possible, you could go ahead and fix that with a find and replace. So this is why, and then you can also see, okay, sorry for this. You can also see a little table here showing you the value distribution. This value distribution is ranked in, you can tell that 72.5 occurs most. More more employees were paid this amount and less employees were paid this amount of value. So this is just a little value description. So this is showing you also your distinct and your unique values, also showing you that in your data as well. Okay. I'm not going to ask if there's any other questions, but since I have a question, is there a question we can find?
Okay, so somebody said, are there cases where the stakeholder does not give his guides or instruction? If there is, how is that done?
Okay. So definitely, when you start out as a data analyst working on questions, you will need to do a lot of research on your own as well. When it comes to dealing with null values, you will have to check online and be seeing a lot of ways to deal with null values in a particular column. So when you have null values for text columns or columns that contain attributes of text, like this gender now, you would have to select what you're giving it. If you don't have a stakeholder, like the person who asked the earlier question, she chose prefer not to disclose. So you can use something like that, or you can use an unknown gender as well. Then when it comes to numeric now, when it comes to numeric, this is where it's a little bit tricky and it all depends on your analysis. Majorly, I don't really majorly in numeric analysis we feel majorly in numeric analysis you end up dropping rules where there is no data given. I think this is where they talk about when you have salaries and there is no salary given, it depends on your analysis. If you are performing an analysis of salary structure, you need rows indicating salaries. So you need to drop rows where salaries is not indicated as well. It just depends on your analysis. If a column is not definitely needed in your analysis, you can drop it. But if it is, you want to make sure that you have a fair number of values there that can help you or aid you in your analysis.
Okay, so this is where we're going to call it a night, or wherever you're joining us from. This is where we're going to end in the class today. Thank you to everybody who joined and stayed till this moment. I really hope your questions were answered, but if they were not, there will be a Q&A session in the group tomorrow by 12. So you can always drop your questions by that time. Meanwhile, the data set is going to be shared to everybody. So you're going to have access to a data set so that you can practice what has been taught today. And you can always go over the video again to watch to just to follow the step-by-step process you took in cleaning the data. So just like we did yesterday, we'd like you to do a Twitterthon, go online, tweet about what you learned today, and using the hashtag 10 days of Power BI. We want to hear from you. We want your feedback. We'll be putting out another form so that you can always fill, so that we can know where we are lagging behind. We apologize for the network glitch today. It was totally unplanned, and we hope to do better next time, but we'd like to say a very big thank you to everybody who has joined from day one and day two. So this is where we'll be calling it, this is where we'll be ending today's class. I hope you guys learned something and you can now clean data in Power BI. Thank you very much.
All right, all right, all right. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Even we had network issues, as Tina said. So I'd like you to share your journey online on what you learned today and what you're going to be practicing yourself, because I'm going to share you this data set so you can work on it. You need to also work on it to be sure that the knowledge sticks. It's just by practicing, it's not by watching videos, it's by practicing as well. So you can also tweet about what you're going to be doing. Yes, you can tweet, oh, I'm going to be performing data cleaning. I'm going to be performing data cleaning on a data set. I'm going to be going through that. You can tweet about that. You can tweet about what you learned today, and you can tweet about what you're going to be practicing tonight or tomorrow, maybe. Using the hashtag, you can use the hashtag 10 days of Power BI on Twitter. You can tag me. My handle was dropped in the Telegram group. I would retweet, I would like as well. So once again, thank you for joining. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope that I've been able to share something with you guys. I hope you guys learned, because it's like just all being for waste if no knowledge was gained. So I really hope you gained something. So thank you very much. Before I go off rambling, I would just like to cut it off here. And I do hope you guys have a lovely day and you had a wonderful Sunday as well. So do have a lovely day. Thank you for joining me. And this is where we come to the end of today's session. Thank you very much.